I'm Amy,
I'm Sarah.
and
And
together, oops,
we're unscripted.
I almost knocked my camera over. All right, so today we're talking about past lives, reincarnation, and the origins of some phobias. Very interesting. So I figured that for this pod, we would start off with one of the most world-renowned cases of past lives. And that is from a woman named Shanti Duvai, and Sarah has the information on that.
Thanks. Yes. So the Shanti Devai case was really, really popular. It was very well known. The basic gist of it was there was a young girl who was born named Lugdi. She was married at the ripe old age of 10 years old to a much older man named Kadarnath, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that right, Shalby, who was a shopkeeper in the same locality. So she was born and raised in Mathura. And then she ended up being the second wife of Mr. Shalby. Again, forgive the
Well,
pronunciation, I have no
you're very
idea. Anyway, so she was his second wife. She ended up giving birth to two children. One child, a daughter, was actually a stillborn, because of whatever reason, but she was a stillborn. And the husband being concerned, once, Shanti got pregnant again. She was about 23 years old at the time of the second pregnancy. He rushed her to a more popular hospital, more technologically savvy, more capable of delivering babies. So he took her there at 23 years old, where she did give birth to a son by cesarean section. It doesn't say if he actually survived or not, but
good.
9 days after giving birth to this young boy, or this brand new baby boy, 9 days later, she got very sick and deteriorated, and she unfortunately passed after giving birth to this little boy. So what's interesting is after she passed away, 1 year, 10 months, and 7 days after she passed, to be exact, another little girl was born to a completely different family. And this young girl's name was Shanti Devai. So Shanti Devai was just like any other girl. The biggest concern they had was she didn't really talk much. Not until she was, about 4 or 5. So
That's
when she
late.
did start talking, huh?
That's
It
late.
is a little late. Yeah, my son didn't start till he was 5. That was autism.
Right.
Um, but anyway, so that was her biggest concern. But when she did start talking, um, she was talking very strangely to her parents. She would talk to them about her husband and her children, and they thought, maybe it was just imaginary. She was just making it up.
Right.
This little girl was saying she had a husband in Mathura. He owned a cloth shop, had a son. She called herself Shaubin, or Shaub's wife. So the parents considered it was just a fantasy. They didn't take any notice. However, when she kept talking about it over and over again, she would actually, talk about, at mealtime, she would talk about how they would give her treats in this life, but she remembers how she was getting different treats when she was married. She was talking about the dresses she wore. She even went to describe distinctive features from her husband, such as he was fair, he had a big wart on his left cheek, and he wore reading glasses. So she also mentioned that her husband's shop was located in front of the Dwarkadish temple. So, again, by the time she was 6, her parents were perplexed and they were worried. So the girl even gave a detailed account of her death following childbirth, apparently.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so they did consult a family physician, and the story goes on and on how this girl was so determined that she was this other woman that she made, basically she made a deal with somebody who said, if you can prove, to me that you were this person, I'll take you there to meet them, or the descendants of them.
Right.
So she agreed to do that, and apparently, she didn't actually recognize the person. They tried to trick her to find out if the person that they were bringing was her husband, And she shyly said, "That's not my husband." But the person with them, with that one, she says she got very blushed, and she said, "That is my husband," because he had the wart by his ear, right here on
Oh,
his left side.
wow.
He was fair skinned and he had reading glasses. So
Wow.
that is the famous case of the Shanti Devai. She did, there is a story online, carolbowman.com, the case of Shanti Devai. You're welcome to check it out. I will ask Amy to put up the link in the description box so you can check it out if you want to read the whole story. There's a lot more details in it, but we're not going to go into it today. But that is the most famous case of the
Past life.
thank you. I can't talk, forgive me. But yeah, so
You can talk,
that's
I
that's
can
the
think.
case.
It's fine.
But that's the Shanti Devai case. So, there's several other cases like that. Amy, you were saying that you know a couple similar shorter cases too. So,
There's a lot, like you said, but one that I remember watching on, I think it was like a Discovery Channel episode. Um, but it was about a child. His name is James Leininger, and I'll have this linked below in the description too. You can read about it. You can, find YouTube clips. I'm sure it's up on YouTube. But he was a Louisiana boy, and he claimed to remember being an American pilot in World War II. And
wow, that's
and
incredible.
I know from a young age he was fascinated with planes, and he would talk about model airplanes like, oh, that's a whatever. Like he would list the actual plane name.
B-37 and yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And it was always a specific World War II, flights that he would, talk about. And he would pretend that he was, Manning, and he would talk about, oh, well, I used to, pilot this plane and blah, blah. And I went down, and he would describe his death. And all of his characteristics and his behaviors were similar to an actual pilot named James M. Houston Jr., who actually did pilot, and he perished in World War II. So it's
That's
just,
crazy.
it is crazy, but it makes you question. Like, kids, there was that show, what was it? Kids say the darndest things.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah,
some of that stuff just spill out of their voices. So if them coming out and say, "Hey, I was this person back in a different life," it's like, "What? What?"
exactly. So I'm going to read. So there's a few different characteristics of kids who, claim to remember past lives. Kind of like, kids there are just more open to seeing ghosts and, the
Mhm.
imaginary friends. You got to be careful. Are they really imaginary? But
Mhm.
like that, um, a quick Google search, it says that children who claim to remember past lives are usually between the ages of 2 and 5, when they start to talk and whatever. They may exhibit
That
behaviors
actually
that
makes
are
sense.
unusual. Yeah, right? That's what I thought. They may exhibit behaviors that are unusual for their family and can't be explained by current life events, like, their obsession with, oh no, I want to pilot, or I used to pilot, or, things like that.
Mhm.
Their statements may accurately match the life and death of a deceased person. They may have birthmarks or birth defects that match wounds or marks on the deceased person. There's cases like that too in India. If I can find it, I'll link it. And it says these memories may fade around the age of 7. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and then it made me think, because I've always believed in, past lives and reincarnation, and
Same.
good. Yeah, I know. But it made me think the origins of phobias. You know, a phobia, the definition is like an extreme fear. It's not just like, oh, I don't like bees, or I mean, it's like you react in sometimes a violent nature. It's an extreme
Mhm.
fear.
It says a type of anxiety disorder characterized by a persistent and excessive fear of an object or a situation. I just
Well,
pulled it up on my computer. So it's a rapid onset of fear, and they're present. It's usually present for more than 6 months. So yeah.
so it makes me wonder, like, some people, they were like, oh, I've always been horrified of snakes. I've got a phobia of snakes ever since I was a kid, but yet they don't have any interaction with snakes in this life. They've never been
Hmm.
bit. They've never almost been bitten. It's different. We can obviously develop, fears and phobias from trauma, car
Yeah.
plane issues, whatever. Of course, we're going to be freaked out. Even movies, like Final Destination, that brought on a whole slew of phobias for people not wanting to
Yeah.
fly or drive behind those log trucks. Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
But but it made me
That's pretty intense.
but it made me wonder. It's like, people who've always been afraid of certain things, and there shouldn't be, there's no logical or rational reason for them to be afraid of that. I've always
Mhm.
thought that's because of a past life.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, I
anything
agree. Yeah, I'm afraid of water and bridges, so absolutely.
I'm saying, I've got a quick story. I've always been afraid of the dark and anything that like obstructs my vision. So it
I
could
You're
be
afraid of the dark. I remember that. We
so
had to sleep with our bathroom light on.
oh my gosh, I have lights, battery operated lights, candle, whatever. You name it, I've got it. I have to. But I got to get over that. We'll get into that later on in the pod too, but um when I was a kid, I've always been terrified of the dark. And I remember, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's just the dark, if it's fog, if it's, blizzards up in Chicago, where we grew up, whiteout conditions, anything. And as a storm chaser now, there's been several times where, I'm encountering, that black sky or, that whiteout rain,
Mhm.
walk that I'm driving into. And I'm like, oh my God, like it's a white knuckle kind of ride. But I remember one time we had some kind of an eclipse or something. And the teachers, they would make those boxes or, you'd have to look safely at the eclipse through the box. I still don't know how it works, whatever. But all I remember hearing was one of the teachers say, whatever you do, don't look up at the sun or you'll go blind. And that's all I needed to hear. And I freaked out. And I mean, when I talk about I made a scene, I made a scene. She's like, come on, Amy, come on. You got to look in the box. And I just screamed at her. I was like, no, I'm going to go blind. It was horrible. I mean, I was terrified, and I was like, why is she trying to do this to me? Why is she trying to make me go blind? But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I could never figure out where that fear came. I wasn't locked in a closet. I didn't have, you know, eye trauma, knock on wood, don't want any. I don't know where it came from. And I've always had a sneaking suspicion it was from a past life.
Mhm.
And
I very well believe.
there's other people that believe that too. You have a Reddit story about that, right?
I do. Yeah, I have a couple of them, but I have this one that this is by Wiggly Nico on Reddit, and the question was, what if each person's phobia is actually the way they died in a past life? So they went on to say, while having dinner with a group of friends last night, we got onto the topic of irrational fears. My friend, for instance, has a debilitating fear of bodies of water. I do too.
Me too.
Even a kiddie pool makes him a little anxious.
Oh,
So
wow.
on the other hand, I've always been terrified of heights and clowns. Again, I'm a height person. I can't do heights.
It makes me
It's
warm,
weird.
sweaty, and clammy thinking about it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it says it's weird that these intense, unshakable phobias, and then they put okay in the parentheses. Okay, maybe mine and my friends aren't intense phobias, but I'm talking actual real phobias. So can sometimes develop seemingly out of nowhere. So I mean, maybe I just don't know enough about psychology to really understand it. But it got me thinking, what if our phobias are somehow connected to our past lives? Specifically, what if each person's phobia is actually the way they died in a past life?
See?
For
Yeah.
example, if a person with a fear of the public or speaking publicly died in his past life by a stampede or a mob, so maybe that's what it was. So they went on to say just a random thoughts, and then some interesting answers. They gave us a link that we can apply to our in the description if somebody wants to read into that further. But
Oh, yeah.
it really filled on the topic of phobias being, past life regressions that, maybe we're not aware of. So I have an intense fear of bodies of water. I went to the ocean. This is my story. So I went
Yeah.
to Hawaii with my husband after we were married, and beautiful. Everybody knows Hawaii is absolutely astoundingly gorgeous. So, and it's got oceanfront views and, resorts, hotels, all of the works. We were in a resort really like right the beach was located right in front of the ocean. So we were right here. We could look out our balcony and see the ocean. So we walked out, and my husband is obsessed with water. So he's like a fish. So he was out in the ocean loving, loving the water. And he kept trying to get me to go in, but I could not go in past my ankles because I was terrified that either I was going to be drowned or that something was going to grab me and drag me under, whether it be a creature or a rip current or something like that. And then the other fear I had was heights. So staying in Hawaii, we ended up going up a huge mountain so we could do like look at over a peak. I can't remember what mountain was, but it was a peak that we could oversee the ocean and the mountain range, so we could see everything around us. But I couldn't go to the top because I started having a panic attack. I started breathing heavy. I was freaking out. My hands were getting clammy. I was sweating. I was crying. I was terrified. And there's absolutely no reason to be terrified. We had, railings and everywhere, everything was safe. But for me, I was absolutely terrified. And it just got me thinking that maybe in one of my past lives I was drowned, maybe as a witch, or maybe I fell off a cliff or was pushed, something like that. So yeah, I can really relate to this whole phobia thing.
It's interesting. My mom actually has an experience too. She's always had this memory. She said it wasn't a dream. It
Mhm,
just kind of like appeared in her head. But
mhm,
all she remembered was she was like probably about the age of 5, maybe 6. She was
mhm.
wearing a dress, like probably 1940s style with like a little sweater over it. And
Aw.
I know it sounds so precious. And she said there was like a couple other kids with her, maybe like 4 other kids with her. And there was a woman and what she thought to be like a man figure. And
Mhm,
she was on her way to school and she can't remember like if she was like, in school and then like she had to like they were ushered to like a cellar or basement, but they had gone to something like that. And she said she remembers being so scared, not knowing the other kids, the adults, they weren't, trying to reassure them or anything, and she
mhm,
said she remember putting her hand up, like, she was just terrified,
mhm.
and all of a sudden, everything just started to, like, fade, like, that was it. Like, it went to black and
Wow.
then it was death, and she always kind of associated it with, like, maybe it was, like, there was, like, a bomb or something that went off,
Yeah, like a bomb shelter. That's what it was sounding like, a bomb shelter
but
where she
then
was with a bunch of random people.
but then I was thinking too, I mean, it wasn't a whole class. If she was in school, they would take more than 4 kids,
Right.
So then I'm thinking, was it a kidnap situation? Was it some kind of a weird I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to, like, read too much into it. Obviously, we don't know what it was, but this has been something that's been with her, like, her whole life, and she told me, she said, "Every morning, ever since I can remember, I have woken up in a panic."
Mm,
And it was
that's
like, this is the last day. Kind of, it's like it's a trigger. It's like a trauma from something that carried on. So that's what makes me think it is, past life.
yeah, I mean, it would make sense.
And
Oh.
it's crazy because too, you hear about all kinds of, stories about other people talking about these experiences. And then touching in, the reincarnation aspect of it, there's a lot of near death experiences that you can read about on YouTube or anywhere, really,
Mhm.
anywhere you can post. And
Sorry, I have
so
something in my
many
eye.
people don't talk
Sorry.
about this. Are you gonna
Alright, I'm
live?
good.
Okay.
I hope so.
Yeah. Me too. Um, so in a lot of these near-death experiences, there's a common theme where people they they say that they go to like an ethereal, place. Everything's beautiful. It's like a heaven. A lot of people say, they meet Jesus or alien-like figures, and they all say the same thing that um pretty much Earth or any other planet is like a school for the soul, and
Mhm.
that we go to learn whatever lessons we have to, and then we reincarnate. We come back and we finish, you know, like
Or we teach others, yeah.
101 to 102 to 104 to advanced, whatever,
Mhm.
until we finish our soul's purpose. And that really hit home to me. It made me feel like, there are lessons that they're almost karmic. We meet the same people, who have the same traits. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, here I am again in a work situation and I'm stuck with a coworker who's a liar, or I'm in a relationship with somebody who's, got these certain behavioral traits. It's like you have
Mhm.
to almost pass the test in order to advance. Otherwise, you're going to keep getting the same lesson until you
Yeah,
pass.
that makes sense, especially in a narcissistic relationship
And there's so
where
many. They're the teachers.
Mhm. Right? It's
But
insane.
so then going from the reincarnation um aspect, what is your take on oops, it keeps getting caught on my sleeve. What is your take on reincarnation and well, just answer that. What's your take on the reincarnation?
So, as a pagan, I also always believe that in reincarnation, because we are teachers and healers, so I believe that we have a certain purpose, and once we die, I kind of agree with the whole you go to a different plane or plane of existence, Summerlands, where you are taught, some lessons that you needed to learn, and then I believe that we are then reincarnated, whether it be into other people or into like animals. So some of us get, reincarnated as animals like a doe or fawn or cats, dogs. So I believe that we are reincarnated to either
That was a
serve a
terrible
purpose.
I was trying to do a heart. There we go.
Mhm. Yeah,
There we go.
so I believe that we're reincarnated to teach people to be kind, to love one another, to try to bring everybody up to that spiritual plane of existence, maybe not physically but metaphorically. So if we're all going to be, we all want to be in a plane of existence where we are happy, healthy, um where the world isn't terrifying when you walk out the door. And sometimes you need animals to do that, or other people to do that. Um, there's just a lot when it comes to reincarnation. Sometimes you even come back as plants. Because sometimes, coming back as a rose,
Tree?
what?
I would. I'd come back as a tree.
A tree or some roses, to remind people of the beauty of the world, you know?
Yeah.
So my take is everybody reincarnates at some point, but I believe also that a part of their soul stays on that spiritual plane too, to reap the rewards of their previous lifestyle, their previous lives. So I believe that our soul is split. One part of us is going to be reincarnated to teach, and then the other part is going to be on the spiritual plane, watching and reaping what we've sown as people.
Oh, that's interesting. It almost
Mhm.
reminds me of like a purgatory where there's been like people who explain, their experience with near death and, they've been in like a purgatory where it's like it is like they're reliving, you know,
Mhm.
threats of their life and they're like, okay, but
Right.
it wasn't like a hell situation. It was just like okay, that was a lesson. I learned it. This doesn't feel good. I want to move
Mhm.
on from that.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Wow.
no, that makes sense. But that's how I feel about reincarnation. And I think everybody does it. Goes to the Muslims, the Buddhists, all of them believe in reincarnation. So
And it's
that's been around for
interesting.
a long time.
Yes, I'm saying. I think it's interesting. There's been some theories where it's almost like, I mean, obviously we don't know, and we're not going to know until it's time, but people, who have passed on and they've, had these near death experiences, it makes me wonder, you hear stories about how, or these theories, I'm sorry, how they'll pass on and they will wait. until the rest of their kin, their family, has passed on, and then
Mhm.
they will reincarnate as a group.
That would be really nice. I honestly want to believe that because I really do want to be, reunited with my mother and my brother and, all my family members. So I would absolutely love for that to happen. Again, I don't, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen after we die, but we can always hope for something like that because I would really love to be with my family again. But either way, life's lessons are life's lessons. You come back, you teach, you train, you heal, and you do it all over again. It's a cycle, the life cycle of humanity, basically.
And then it also made me think, there's some people that you meet, and it's like you always hear, oh, we've got a personality clash or whatever when you just don't get along with somebody. And then there's some people like you and I, when we met, it's like the moment we met, we didn't even have to like introduce ourselves, pretty
Nope,
much.
you didn't
We
have
were
to say
instant
anything.
best friends. We were instant like soul sisters. And you don't, at least we haven't met, other people like that. And it's a really genuine and heartfelt experience when you can meet somebody that you can just click with
Click
like
with
that.
exactly.
And it makes
Jeez.
you, yeah, I know, right? It makes you wonder though. It's like the people that you meet in the supermarket or whatever, and it's like there's just this negative energy and you don't get along with them. Is that somebody that is there such a thing as a personality clash, or did you know them in a past life
Mhm.
and there's
Maybe they were an
animosity?
enemy where they did something to you, and there's regret and anger and resentment. Yeah,
Yeah, I've
absolutely.
always wondered that. It
That
makes me
actually
think.
makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
I think
So
so
it
too.
could very well be the fact that they were somebody not so great to you in a past life. Maybe they're here to for us to teach them. Maybe change that view of them somehow. Whether it be instead of being so angry towards them, maybe like a kind word can change, make the whole thing a different story. I don't know how that works. I know there's a lot of people that I don't like. There's a lot of people that I don't like. There's a lot of people that I can't stand, and you and I have been dealing with bullies forever.
God.
And even if I seen them now,
Or-
yeah, I'm literally, even now at our ages now, if I were to see them, I would probably want to punch them in the face because it's just that's just my personality. But thing that's funny because you and I have been so close for so long, and it's bizarre because you're a Gemini and I'm Sagittarius, so we're on like complete opposite sides of the spectrum, and we're supposed to like not get along whatsoever. But for you and me, we've been, together for so long. We've become extensions of one another. We think the same, we act the same. Um, I can feel when you're upset or sad. We just have that innate knowing that something's bothering us. So, we reach out to one another for like whatever purpose. So I think that's like a twin soulmate thing. So,
I think that see
but it
that's
makes sense. What?
you go. You finish.
No, I was just saying it's our relationship is like a twin flame thing, but it makes sense that when we see certain people, there's that clashing in personalities. So that could very well be, representative of oops, drop my what's it called? This thing.
Oh,
My
computer.
thing. Yeah, my
Computer.
laptop, that's the word. I can't talk, forgive me. That's what I get for putting in 10 hours today working. But no, it leads into what you were saying. So some personalities clash and some just click. So we were lucky enough to be, clicky. But that's
No,
what we've been, over 30 years now?
we're not
Almost?
that old. What are you talking about? Shh.
Oh,
Anyway,
oh, oh. That's right.
just 10
Forever.
years.
Just
That's
put
fine.
forever.
Yeah.
Huh?
10 years. It's fine. Yeah. Well,
So, I do have real quick story. I found this when I read it
oh,
too
yeah.
about different types of past lives. I'm only going to briefly touch. This person is called Fragrant Gold 615 on Reddit, and they say that they had snippets of memories from past lives, but only like 1 to 2 memories, so they can only remember bits and pieces of it. One of the one that I really, really liked was the fact that this one says I remember hiding from the Nazis with my small terrier dog in a bunk bed by covering us up with a sheet and playing dead. Um, a young blonde soldier with a rifle came in to where I was, pulled back the sheet, and saw that me and the dog were alive. So he put a finger over his lips and told us to shush, and then shouted in German that there was nobody left in the bunk because they had all died. So that one really stuck out to me. That's just humanity at its best, seeing something like that. Somebody, a Nazi who was ready to kill everyone, literally saved this child's life in
Right.
one of her past lives. So that one is really unique. And there's one more I want to share for them. There's like 6 of them on here, but I'm only going to share one more. And
Sure.
this one is going to be, where is it? Oh, here we go. I remember playing near a pond as a young girl. I was maybe 4 to 6 years old. I was wearing huh?
I don't like it already. There's
I
water.
remember playing near a pond. That's why I had to read it. Near a pond as a young girl, maybe 4 to 6 years old. I was in Victorian clothing. I was on the grounds of a big house, maybe a mansion or castle or something, but I had a male twin brother. She says, I had a male twin brother. He fell into the pond. And I remember I ran to get to the adults to get them to come to the pond to get to him. I couldn't get to him. They couldn't get to him. And unfortunately, he was not able to be saved.
I hate it.
So, yeah. So, I mean, but these are past lives that this young person has come to know. This is what she associates with her being. So knowing your past lives could be more than just how you died. It could be somebody you love who died or something close to you that happens, you know? So
Um,
one of those was for life and the other one was about death. So, I mean, there's so many particulars when it comes to past lives and regression and reincarnation and things like that. So it's intense and it's, it can be stressful.
and you know what that makes me think of too? What if, okay, like going off of the theory that we do come back in groups, do we
Mhm.
choose the groups that we come back in? Is it everybody that we've ever known in our life, or is it only our family? Because I would hate to
Mm.
think that, for the people who were, the unfortunate victims of a serial killer, you know,
Mhm.
they all come back together and maybe that serial killer is like an uncle now in their life and they're like, oh, I hate Uncle Rick. Or,
Hmm.
to where it makes me wonder like the connections of how we come back and why we come back. And do we come back like that because there's another lesson to be learned?
That's what I'm thinking. A lesson to be learned or something to teach. That gives me goosebumps talking
Yeah,
about that. That's creepy.
it is creepy.
But yeah,
Okay.
no, that's great.
Well, then going off of that, I'll end with this. Do you think, because if you look up like self hypnosis or just, world renowned hypnosis, past life regression, one, do you believe that it's possible? Because I've always heard that there's some people who are just not able to be put under for some reason. And
Mhm.
two, do you think it's safe to do self hypnosis on yourself and actually recover memories that way? Because one thing that I read is that people who have like a severe mental disorder, like
Mhm.
schizophrenia, maybe severe depression, maybe bipolar,
Mhm.
they are not advised to do the self hypnosis.
Yep. Mhm.
And also, it
I
makes me
poked
wonder,
myself in
like,
the eye again.
what is with you and eyes? Stop that.
I don't know. Look, I have a piece of hair on my face. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I'm listening. I just had something stuck on my face.
You're fine. There's me all day. It's been windy. But I'm wondering, oh, I forgot what I said.
No, you're asking me if I think that it's safe for somebody who has some type of mental disorder to be able
Because
to do
there's
self
those
hypnosis.
triggers. There's code words like, okay, 1, 2, 3, awake. If you don't have something
Right.
to do that.
What's really cool is I looked up some of the techniques that they use to pull out these repressive memories, and they use words like you are now in a different life, living in another life, that you have lived before in another time. You are now reliving that other life that you lived once before in a different time. Then they'll say, "What name can I call you by?" And
Oh,
they'll
wow.
use words like, they'll use words like, "I want you to look down and tell me what you are wearing. Describe
Mhm.
everything you are wearing in detail. Where are you?" So there's very specific code words that they can trigger those memories. Now, it does say that past life regression can be achieved in about 15 minutes or so by a trained
Really?
professional, and they can actually to recall how they passed away, though, can take up to like 45 minutes to get to how you died.
Wow.
So they
Yeah.
ask you everything that's going on around you. What year is it? What are you wearing? Where do you work? Things like that. And sometimes it takes up to 45 minutes to get to how they died. But then after it's all over, they have that past life regression, that memory, and then it can be, used however, or they can push it out, whatever it is that they need to be using. Now, as for bipolar and schizophrenia and all that, I think it could be a very dangerous situation to try to do that to yourself because of personality changes. You might, start to believe that you are someone else when you're not. I mean, you may have, been this person in another life, but here you are in our times, modern days, and this is not
Yeah.
you anymore.
I did
So
not
if
know
you were
that.
like, yeah, if you were a murderer in the past,
Oh,
and now you're a police officer, you don't want to go back to that murderous street, so I think it
okay.
can be very dangerous without trained professionals. However, I do my own meditation for past life regressions, but I know how to, when I'm triggered, I don't do them, but I know how to keep myself tethered to the natural plane. So that could be another
Yeah.
podcast. I can tell you guys how I do it and how you guys can probably do it too. But I can keep myself tethered to this plane so I never lose who I am. So there are ways around that.
Yeah, because one thing that I read too is that a lot of the times that people choose the self-hypnosis route, it can create false memories. And that could just be
Mm-hmm.
confusing, so you end up with more confusion versus clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's a really interesting subject. So, but we
We'll have
are
to get
out of
this
time.
into it. Yeah, we're
So
out.
we will we're gonna have to pick this up and revisit this at a later date and
Yeah,
maybe go into more details like the origin, history, things like that. So
for sure. All right.
anything
Well,
else you want to add?
no, no, I think we pretty much covered it all. So again, it's a heavy topic, and there's
Mhm.
plenty more like NDE experiences that we can get into, and it's a very heavy topic. So we'll definitely come back and we'll revisit it, and we can talk about some things that maybe if we've tried self hypnosis on ourselves and whatever, and just anybody that we know or anybody that decides to comment in, we can
Mhm.
discuss that as well. But
Mhm.
hopefully you guys enjoyed today's podcast. We enjoyed talking about it. Um,
If you guys have any past life regressions or past life experiences you want to share with
yeah.
us, please do so. We do have our email address, and I don't want to butcher it again. So Aim, tell them our email address.
It's unscriptedparanormal@gmail.com, and it will be linked below in the description.
So let us know, and we may be able to share some of your stories and experiences on our channel. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. All our social media pages are up and ready to go. You can contact us through any of those, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So, yeah, I think that's about it. So until next time, I'm Sarah.
I'm Amy. Keep it creepy.
Keep it real, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.